All right, so we were at 4.5. We didn't finish it. We have one topic within 4.5 to finish. So let's go to that. Uh, so the uh, let me mention something. I was able to see that several students couldn't do the same problem they did in the homework. It indicates that in the homework they didn't really do the work themselves, either took it from someone else or whatever happened. They didn't learn from it. If you do your homework problems on your own, then you have learned it. You don't even have to uh, re redo it or look at it again to prepare for the test. That's how it is. These ideas and techniques, once you learn it, you have it. So you really have to do the work yourself. Only then you're learning. Otherwise, you're not learning. So if you're not learning, you're not going to uh, do it in the test. And so what is the point of getting good grade in the homework and failing all the tests? Then you fail the course. Or if you're going to cheat in the exam also, um, then you're not prepared for the next course. Some of you have computer science majors. You're going to need this knowledge throughout your computer science career. And if you don't learn this and get the grade some other way, then you're not going to be able to pass the other courses. Are you going to cheat through the entire computer science curriculum? Can't do that. So it's not going to work. You really have to try to learn, get help when you need. I have office hours, and hardly anybody is meeting with me in the meeting with me to ask questions. You should use those services and the tutoring service and all that to learn and do it yourself. And otherwise, you're not going to make it through the entire computer science major. You're going to drop out. So if you find it too difficult to handle, you may have to change your major. But this course is required, and the knowledge is essential for the entire computer science curriculum. And that's why I take it seriously, and I give you all of the things you need to know to be able to proceed with the rest of the computer science curriculum. And there are several students who are not really learning, and they are getting the solutions from somewhere else. Some students are even getting it from some website. So please don't do that. You really have to do it yourself to be able to learn and do well in the entire computer science major. Otherwise, you're going to drop out at some point. No points. It was very clear too many students did the project by some other means, not themselves. And if you did the project yourself, that last programming question, you should be able to do it. And there were from this class, only 3 students did that last programming problem. But all the students have almost 100% in that project. So how did that happen? So it's very clear what's going on, but I may not be accusing you. I did notice some occurrence of duplications, but it wasn't enough to accuse anybody as to have cheated. So I didn't bring it up, and it doesn't mean you're getting away and getting through everything. You are not going to make it through the test, and even if you do, you're not going to make it through the next course. You don't have the knowledge to handle it. All right. So let me move on to today's topic, which is the same accumulation that we have done, but previously we were doing it for given series, adding up series and things like that. Now we are going to see how to accumulate sum of things with data that the user enters. So the user is going to enter several data, sometimes hundreds of them. For example, if it is a statistics software that'll be that'll be analyzing statistical data, then user has hundreds of data to enter, and your program should get all of the data and process them in some other way by following the program. So the program is going to get many data from user and then accumulate some kind of accumulation, like adding up all of them or adding up the squares of them or adding up the reciprocals, whatever you want to do. Uh, Sometimes it's not adding up, just finding maximum of all that and minimum of all those. So many data are going to come in and you need to do some processing with that. And that's what you're going to see. So the first, we will do the topic of Sentinel, not Sentinel control. Oops, sorry, I am at the wrong place. Yeah,
Hey, Professor.
yes.
Student waiting in the waiting room.
Oh, there's someone in the waiting room?
Yeah.
4 people, okay. All right, so let me go back. This is where I should begin. I was at the wrong page. So we're going to do accumulation with data obtained from user. So user is going to enter many data and we have to handle them. Now we don't have any way of storing all of them, not yet. We will learn that in chapter 6. So without storing all of the data, we'll have to manipulate. We have to do whatever we need to do with all of them. But there are ways to do that. Let's think of a simple example, such as the information coming in is test grade for a professor. The professor will enter all the grades one at a time, and we need to add them up and find the average, and maybe even I had to write down the grades that are above average and things like that. So let's just think of just finding average of all the numbers entered as one simple example. So the program has to obtain the data from user and then add them up. If you're finding average, then you also have to count them up, how many data you got. Okay, so we obviously need a loop to repeatedly request and read the data. And that's exactly what we will do. Use a loop so that we repeatedly ask for the data and read it into a variable. But like I said, we're not going to be storing all of them. We just, whatever we read, whatever the first number we get, we process it the way we want to process, and then ask for the next one. So the loop needs to be controlled so that it will only execute the number of times the user has data. So that's the part we need to first work out. There are 2 ways to control the loop so that it will get exactly, it'll execute exactly the number of times it needs to, or the number of times the user has data. We shouldn't, we don't want to ask for a data when the user is already finished entering all the data. So the program will be stuck if you do that. So we have to stop the loop at the right time. There are 2 methods to do that. One is called counter control accumulation. Counter control means you control the loop by the count. So you keep getting your data and You keep getting the data as long as the user has more data. That means that means in the counter controlled accumulation method, you first ask the user to enter the count. So the user has to have a count of the data he or she has and enter that count. So if the user enters 50, then I have to make sure the loop goes 50 times asking for 50 data. And we add up all those 50 data. That's the first one. Now, centrally controlled loop is another way. We'll get to that later. So let's let's do this counter control loop first. The grades of students in a class for a test are going to be entered by the user. Write a program that obtains the number of grades first, and then the grades themselves. So first we had to ask for the grade number, and then ask for the grades. So if the user enters like 25, then we need to make sure the loop goes only that many times. Loop will repeat only that many times. All right, so the idea is very simple. You just have a cout and cin statement first to get the class size, which is the number of data. And then make sure to have a counter inside the loop that keeps track of how many data you have read. And then it'll only go that many times. It will count the loop will repeat until count hits the class size number.
This is still chapter 4.
Yeah. Yes, we are still in chapter 4.5.
Okay. Okay.
Several of you came late today. You shouldn't be late for this class. You know, if you come late, it's often very difficult to understand what's going on. All right. So the example is to get class size first, and then get the number of data that's equal to class size, and find the sum of them, and even average if necessary. So here's how the program goes. Declare the variable grade for storing the grade. I can only store one grade in that variable, and we're going to work with that, with the data one at a time. Sum is for adding up the data, average grade for the average, and class size is in type. It's going to be the size of the class, and count starts at 1. So the first thing I need to ask for is the class size and read it into the variable class size. Then inside, now the loop begins, and before looking at the control of the loop, let's see what's inside the loop. Ask for the grade and read the grade, very first grade, and add it to sum. See, immediately I have to process it because I cannot hold the data. I only have one variable to hold the data. So I add this grade to the sum, put it back in sum, and increment my counter, and then close the loop. So this way, loop will go back now, and as long as count is less than or equal to class size is true, it'll ask for another grade now. And the second grade will be added to the sum now, and then it'll increment the counter. Because I have added 2 grades, the counter becomes 2, and then go and make sure count is still within class size, and ask for the next grade, and add the grade, and so on. So this will add up all the grades for the entire class. So if user entered class size 25, then count will go up to 25. When count equal to 25, I'm still asking for another grade and adding the grade and incrementing counter and so on. So that when the counter is over class size, loop stops. At that point, we have added up all of the grades. So to be able to use this approach, the user must have the class size available, and you need to ask for the size first. Now, in your homework, the very first problem is on this counter control loop. So some students when they do the problem, they don't realize it's counter control loop. And maybe, I don't know why they have had trouble understanding it, but it is counter control loop. You ask for the size and then proceed this way. Now, when the loop ends, the sum is already finished, and you divide the sum by the class size to get the average. And then you write the average. Average is our goal. Now, as you can see, we don't have all the numbers saved. We only have one grade at a time saved in the same memory cell. And when you finish, the last grade is available in the grade variable. Nothing else is available. Let me move on. So this is how the counter control loop works. So when this program is executed, this is how the interaction goes. The first question it asks you is enter the class size. And then it'll ask for the user said 10. So now 10 times you'll ask for the grades, 10 of them. When the 10 grades have been entered, it'll write the average because the loop is finished. Okay, so let me see. A warm-up exercise, write a program to obtain class size and the grades of students in the class and to print how many are passing the test. Passing grade is 60. Okay, you can see that you don't have all the grades available when the loop finishes. Only when the loop finishes, we can calculate the average. So if you want to check for which grades are above average, then you have to have the user enter the data again because you don't have the data saved anywhere. So you have to get each grade and then decide whether it's passing or not. So I want you to assume that first loop has been written and we have calculated the average. Now we have to write another loop that will get all the data again and then enter the how many how many students are passing, or how many grades enter passing grades. Basically, you need to count them. So that's the part I want you to write. Assuming that the average is already there, already found, you write the part of the program that will count how many passing grades are there. All right, go ahead and either type it in the chat or write on a paper and show it to me on your camera. So you're writing the second half of the program. First half of the program has computed the average, and that half is this, basically. It has the average computed right there.
Can you go back to the problem?
Oh, okay.
For a second, sorry.
Mm-hmm. you're only writing the second half of this program, assuming that the first half of the program has obtained all the data and found the average. So you now have the average available, but you still have to get all the data again to be able to count how many passing grades are there.
Is it possible if you could go back to the
Program,
program?
okay. All right. Okay, now you have both on the screen. The problem and half of the program. All right, I see some in the chat. Okay, I'm looking at Clarence's program. You need the loop again. You don't have the grades available, so you have to ask for the grades. You're assuming that grade is available. Only the last grade is available. That's not good enough. You need to start over and ask for all the grades from the beginning. And you're not doing that. Anissa, you have the same issue. You don't have all the grades available.
Gotcha.
But we already know the class size. So you know how to control the loop. I only saw 2 students making attempt. I need to see more. You have to try to write these programs, otherwise you cannot learn. Only 2 students tried.
Well, Professor, I'm writing.
I'm sorry.
I'm writing the program out.
Yeah, I want you to write the program in the chat or write it on a paper. If you're not good at typing, then write it on a paper and show it to me on your camera. You have to turn the camera on and show it to me. It's very similar to this first half of the program. You're going to ask for the grade, and then only thing you're doing differently is determining whether it's a passing grade or not and counting passing grades. All right.
Is my program gonna work?
Oh, who, you have one? Oh, okay, I'm looking at Jonathan. Can you put it closer? All right, let me. All right, I can read better now. But I don't see a loop though. You have a for loop? Not really. You can't really use a for loop here. It's going to be very similar to the loop I have, you know. Okay, while count, let's say to do that. It looks like I'm only seeing the same program I wrote here. You're right. You're supposed to write.
Yeah, you have a for loop in the beginning that counts the number of times that you want to find how many times you want to enter in the class size.
Okay.
And then
Go up a
so
little,
the user enters that amount.
move it up a little bit. Let me see the bottom. Move it up.
And the bottom is the actual program.
Okay. The key part is supposed to be counting how many of these grades are passing grades, and I don't see that there.
Oh, the if, sorry.
That's the key component here, okay? You don't have that.
Yeah. So you get the average and then two.
Okay, I see some chats, so let me see. Okay. Okay, Terence has the right program. Very good. And it's you're only getting one grade and comparing that to 60. You're only looking at one grade. That's not counting all the passing grades.
Got it.
You need a loop, right? Okay, I have Shimron. Shimron, you're only comparing the last grade. When the loop finishes, the variable grade has the last grade we received. And you're only comparing that against 60 and incrementing counter. But you need to compare all the grades. Just comparing one grade and counting that is not useful. And that's all I have. Only 3 students made attempt.
Hold on.
Only
I
3
almost done.
students made attempt. That's
One
what,
second, Professor. I'm finishing up mine.
okay. Okay, I'm trying to read Damien's program. Damien, you're just counting all the grades entered. That's not what we want to count. We want to count the passing grades. You're just counting all the grades. All right, looking at Sam Brightman's. Yes, Sam has the right program. Very good. All right, Ivan has a program. Let me see. Class size, count, let's say the class size. Okay, one problem with Ivan's program, and also let me see, I think Sam has the same mistake. That the mistake is this. You need 2 counters, one counting how many grades have been entered, another one counting how many passing grades are there. Both of you are using one counter, so that's not going to work. See, you need a counter of the counter that counts how many grades have been entered so that you can control the loop. To control the loop, you need that count. And then another counter will be counting how many grades are passing. So both of you need to make an adjustment to your program. Yeah. And all right, no other, no other terms.
I believe Anissa and Sam put one. Just have to scroll up a little bit.
Okay. Uh, Ivan, now you're not counting the data. Your variable count is at 0, and you didn't even set it to 0. The variable count is not changing. It's not counting the data. You're only counting the passing rates. You're not counting data. Without counting the data, you cannot control the loop. Okay, count, let's say, equal to class size, if grade, the 16 plus plus. Anissa, you don't have the count of passing grades until the loop finishes. You're writing, you have a cout statement that writes output inside the loop. Inside the loop, you don't have the count finished. You don't have the counting process finished. So you don't have the count available to write. So that's a mistake.
Okay.
Professor, I put my revised code in the chat.
You have what?
I put my revised code in.
In the chat?
Yeah.
Shimran. I think I looked at it before. What you're doing is you're comparing one grade against 60, and that one grade is the last grade entered. That's not good enough. You need to compare all the grades against 60. Okay, so you need a loop for that.
Professor, I just put in the revised code in the chat.
Who, Jonathan? Okay.
No, Damien.
Damien, okay. All right, I'm looking at yours. Great, if it's okay, +1. All right, you have a count 1 that counts the passing grades. That part is right. But then look at the count that controls the loop. Count less than or equal to class size is the loop control. And that count is not changing. It's not counting. That count is fixed at whatever it was at the beginning, right? That counter is not changing here. The counter that's supposed to count all the grades entered so far is not counting. It's at a fixed number. All right, Jonathan has something, but to be able to see, I think I had to stop sharing for a second. Hold on. All right, now I can see. Grade. Go up a little bit. All right. No, Jonathan, you're comparing after the loop, you're only comparing one grade. You need to compare all the grades. So no, that's not working. All right, let me share again. All right, 2 students had almost right program, but they didn't write the counting of the 2 grades correctly. All right, I'm going to go over that on the board here. So let me, yeah, so here's the exercise showing. We need to get the grades and count how many grades are passing. So we also need to count how many grades we are getting so that we can control the loop. So the loop has to be controlled by the class size, So if the class size is 25, then I have to get 25 grades. In order to do that, I have to count how many grades I have so far. So here's how I begin. I'm going to take the pencil. My whiteboard has a new version now, and I have no option but to use the new version. They terminated the old version. I'm still getting used to the new version, so bear with me. So I picked up the pencil. All right, now let's see. All right, the program begins with the main, and you need to introduce counter to count the grades entered. So I'll call it G count. See, if you make the variables that make sense, you'll be able to keep track of them yourself easier. So make names that are meaningful. So I'm going to declare that as grade count, to mean grade count, GCNT, grade count, initially 0. And then passing grades count, I'll call it P count, equal to 0. And then class size, I'll call it size. Okay, with these, I need to ask for the class size first. And read that into size. So now we know the size of the class. And the next thing is to get a grade. Of course, I need the variable float type grade. And now my loop begins. I'm going to ask for the grades inside the loop. So the variable size, I got the value for the size, and I have a value for the grade count. Right now it's 0. So while grade count is less than or equal to size, the grade count can only go up to the size of the class. For each, so while grade count is less than or equal to size, I need to ask for the grade. So in this central control loop, you ask for the grade only inside the loop. Ask for all the grades inside the loop. Enter grade and cin grade, and then increment the G count, because the grade count is going to be counting how many grades we have received. So as soon as you get a new grade, you have to increment that counter. Now we'll do the processing of the grade. The processing we need to do is see if that grade is passing. So compare it against 60. If it is over 60, then P count goes up. P count counts passing grades. And that's it, close the loop. You cannot write the result until the loop finishes. So don't do any see out inside the loop. So this loop will ask for the grade here and get the first grade, increments the grade count, and then if the grade is over 60, it'll increment pass count. Now this will keep going. Now it'll go back, and as long as grade count is less than size, ask for the next grade, get the next grade, increment the counter for the grade, and then compare it against 60 to increment pass count. So the pass count is keeping track of how many grades are passing. The other counter is tracking how many grades have been entered. That counter is needed to control the loop. The second counter is our answer, counting how many passing grades. So when the loop finishes, all the grades have been compared against 60. That's when we are ready to write the answer. So cout count of pass equal to p count. Well, I have to say I'm disappointed. Only 2 students came close to the right program. But it's, you know, you had to try. Not enough students are trying. That's the disappointing part. All right, moving on. The next thing is to understand how to do the sentinel control. So the count, if the count is available, then we can control the loop by the count. But count is not always available. Sometimes it's you know, 365 grades or that are there, or data are there. The user doesn't have the count. I mean, counting is a big thing for the user. You know, when there are thousands of data, they don't want to sit down and count. So count is not always available. So do we have to have the count? No, we can have the system count. So as long as we can control the loop in some other way. So that's when we need the sentinel control accumulation. So here's how the sentinel control works. You, the programmer, decide to use a certain value as a value that the user will enter to signal that he has entered all the data. So the user will signal that he or she has entered all the data by entering a specific number or character, whichever is appropriate. So if you're dealing with all the numbers, then this special number, this special thing he will enter is going to be a number. If you're expecting all characters, then it'll be a character. So that number or character is what we call sentinel. The sentinel is the special number or character that the user will enter to signal that he or she is finished entering all the data. So while the data entered is not equal to the sentinel, our program has to keep going. Only when the data entered. So in place of the data, he will enter the sentinel value. And when he or she enters that sentinel value, the loop should terminate. So that's what we call sentinel control. So this way, user doesn't have to enter the count. The system can count. Your program can count how many data have been entered. So let's use a example. The grades of students in a class for a test are going to be entered by the user. It's going to be sentinel control program, and it will obtain all the grades and compute and print the average grade. So we're going to use a variable grade to store the grade, and then control the loop by saying, as long as grade is not equal to sentinel, keep going. That's what the grade loop control is going to be. All right, so let's go to the board and see how to write that. Now remember, this sentinel control loop I'm going to explain to you is the best way to arrange. You're going to have to remember how to arrange these statements the way I'm arranging them. And if you change that, you know, it's not the only way, but if you can change it, if you change it, you had to change many things. And as long as you know how to do it, you'll be fine. All right, so it's the same program. You're going to find minimum, I mean, you're going to find the average of grades, but this time we don't know the count. The user will not enter the count. All right, so here's how the program begins. I'm going to use -1 as the sentinel. Now the programmer decides what the sentinel will be, and the programmer has to let the user know that that's the sentinel. So float grade and int count. So this time I need to count, but I'm not going to control the loop by count. I need the count because I need it to find the average. Okay, and in addition to grade, I need a sum equal to 0, and an average to hold the average. That's lowercase a average. Okay, so this time I need to get the first data before the loop begins, because I'm going to say in the loop, let me write the loop, then you will see why I need that. While I need to say in the loop, now remember, this time the loop is going to be controlled by grade not being equal to sentinel. So while grade is not equal to -1, that's how the loop is going to be controlled. I need to process the grade. So see, the grade has to be compared against -1 as a control of the loop. So grade must have a value. So does that mean I can put a dummy value in grade to make the loop start? You can. Accordingly, you can adjust everything. But the better way is this. Get the first grade before the loop begins. Enter grade. Ask for the grade before the loop begins. And see in grade. So this is first grade I'm getting. And only the first grade I'll get before the loop. And that grade is compared against -1. If it is -1, loop will never start. If it is not -1, then I need to do the processing of that grade. So inside the loop, the very first statement I do is processing that grade I already have, which is going to be added to sum. So sum equal to sum plus grade. That'll add that grade to the sum, and then increment the counter, because I know I need to count how many data we already have. So count must start at 0. So right after adding one grade, very first grade, my counter becomes 1. You need to make sure your counter is right. After that, what I do is ask for the next grade. Only at the bottom of the loop, after doing all the processing of the data, I ask for the next grade, enter grade. And now I get the grade in the same variable. So I'm raising the previous grade. And getting new grade. With the new grade, I close the loop. Why? Because this way, if the new grade is sentinel, then when you go to the top, the grade is equal to sentinel, loop stops, and you're not adding the sentinel to the sum. You have to make sure you're not adding the wrong things. So this arrangement works best. And if you do it differently, there are many different ways to do it, but then you have to make sure everything works right and you're not adding sentinel to the sum.
Can you have a negative grade in there?
No, the negative one is the sentinel. Okay. In other words, when the user is finished entering all the grades, he or she will enter -1 to signal that he is finished entering grade. So in this statement where you say enter grade, you need to also say enter -1 when finished entering data. You need to add that so that the user is clear about what the sentinel is. See, I'm saying enter grade and enter -1 when finished entering grade. So when the user doesn't have any more grade, he will be entering -1 as the grade. So the grade will pick up -1 now. And when you go up to the top, the grade is equal to -1 now. So this condition is not true anymore. Loop will stop. Okay. When the loop stops, you have already added up all the grades and you have the count of all the grades. So down here after the loop, you can say ab equal to sum divided by count. The count has the count of the grades, sum has sum of all the grades. All right, everybody follow that, or any other question? So let me use a simple example to show you example data to show you how it works. All right, so let's say the data is 75, 90, 65. All right, let's work with these data. I need to make sure this program is going to find the average of these. Okay, and then so the user will enter 75, 90, 65, and then -1. He will enter -1 to indicate that he or she is finished entering all the data. All right, so when the system asks for grade, so we have the variable grade changing in this loop, and the variable sum is changing, count is changing. Sum is 0 initially, count is 0. So when the grade has nothing initially, but then here, this statement will ask for the grade and user enters the grade. The user will enter 75 here. So grade is now 75. And right after that, grade not equal to -1 is true. It's 75, not -1. So it'll enter the loop. And then in the loop, we are doing the addition. 75 is added to sum. So sum has 75. And then the counter increases to 1. So I have added 1 grade to sum and the counter increased. And now asking for the next grade. And here user will enter 90, second grade. And with that 90, it goes to the top of the loop. 90 is not equal to -1. So 90 is added to sum. So sum has 75 right now. You're adding 90. So 165 is the sum now. You're adding to the current value of sum, which is 75. You're adding the 90, bring back results in the sum. So sum is 165. Counter goes up by 1. So counter is 2 now. Oh, that was 90. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, so that's done. And now it's asking for the next grade. And the next grade is going to be 65. So 65 is entered now. With the 65, it goes up to the top, and this is still true. So 65 is added to the current value of sum and stored it back in sum. Current value of sum is 165, so 230. 230 goes into sum, and counter goes up to 3. And with that, that was 65. Okay, so 230 and 3. With that, so you have added the 65, you have incremented the counter, and now you're asking for the next grade. Now the user will enter -1. User enters -1, and now you go to the top of the loop, grade is equal to -1. So this condition is false, loop terminates. When the loop terminates, you have already added up all 3 numbers. See, the 230 is your count, and 230 is the sum, 3 is the count. So now it's going to find the average by dividing average equal to 230 divided by 3, which is the correct average. So that's how it works. Everybody follow that? Any question? Okay, so look at the way I have written the sentinel control loop. I'm getting the very first grade before the loop begins, and then getting next grade at the bottom. Always, because the very first grade I got before the loop begins is processed. Whatever the processing you need to do, you do that here. Increment counter and all that. Then get the next grade at the bottom. After getting next grade, you're going to the top of the loop and comparing against Sentinel before processing it. If it is not Sentinel, you're processing it. That's how it works. And if you put them in this order, it'll be working perfectly. So follow this method for Sentinel control loops, then you won't have any problem. If you change it, then you have to adjust many things. All right, going on. So that's the program given in your book also. It's the same way, same program I wrote, but I wrote it on the board so that you can understand better. The Sentinel, yeah, this is all explaining the same thing I explained already. But here is how the other way, if you want to do it this way. You put a dummy value for the grade, that's 0 dummy value, so that the condition will be true initially. So this way you're not getting the grade before the loop, the first data before the loop. You're just using a dummy value, 0. And the grade is not -1 is true, so the loop begins. And inside the loop, you ask for the grade and get the first grade, add the grade, and increment counter. Okay, so what's wrong with this? when the grade is -1, user will enter the sentinel at the end. That sentinel is getting added to some right here. Okay, so sentinel is being added. Well, okay, sentinel has been added, so that means what? We can make an adjustment outside the loop. So such -1 has been added. So if I add a +1 to the sum to make an adjustment to it, then that'll work. The count is correct. No, the count is also wrong. I may have a mistake here because count also is right. Count is right because I started at 0. Let me see, 0, first grade. Count will be 1, second grade. No, the count is actually counting the sentinel as well. So the count should be also adjusted by 1 because we don't want to count the sentinel. So that means you need parentheses here. So there are all kinds of adjustments that have to be made. And also this is confusing for a reader. Why is this 1 added? And things like that. Too many adjustments have to be made, and that's confusing even for a reader. But if you follow the other method still on the board, no adjustments have to be done. Everything is straightforward and clean. That's the best way. So I strongly advise you not to do this kind of work. It's a sloppy approach, basically. You have to make adjustments to everything. The counter and the sum, everything has to be adjusted. That's not good. All right. So let's see. Do we have time for this warm-up exercise? Yes. And yeah, that's the end of the lecture anyway. It says, write C++ program that uses sentinel control loop to continuously obtain float type numbers from the user until a 0 is entered. So 0 is going to be sentinel. That's what it means. It's giving you a sentinel. Multiply together only the positive numbers entered. All right. So it's going to be very similar to the one we wrote, but this time you're multiplying the numbers that are positive. You're getting numbers and multiplying up the positive numbers entered. And I recommend writing the sentinel control loop the way I explained. All right, so let me see if anybody can write that. I don't see anything in the chat. Is anybody writing?
I'm working on it.
Okay. This is very elementary. These are elementary, very simple problems I'm asking you to write. So some of you are not even able to make an attempt on it. But then when I give you the project, you have 100% of the project. You know, you make me suspicious, right?
It's because we have time to do the projects and stuff.
Well, I'm
Think
plenty of
about it.
time. It takes only 30 seconds to write, and I have already given you several minutes. And some students are not even attempting. I'm not referring to the ones who are trying. There are other students who are not even attempting or don't have the knowledge to make an attempt, whatever it is. But there are 20 students here, and only 2 or 3 students are making any attempt. That's very disappointing.
Professor Gugan, we're not making our projects at 8 o'clock morning. Maybe that's why.
You're not what?
We're not doing our projects at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, 8 o'clock in the morning is not really the reason. I mean, your mind is fresh at 8 o'clock in the morning. You should be able to do better than other times.
Yeah, I usually have to go through the chapter again to understand. Like I have 2 other textbooks to help me with C++.
So what I just explained about sentinel control loop,
No, it's good. It's good, but to fully understand it, I have to review it and review like 3 times. You know,
Yeah.
right? So right after class, I have to watch a bunch of YouTube videos and then look at 2 other textbooks.
to understand what we have on the screen,
Mhm.
you need to watch several YouTube videos.
Just to be fully aware, because again, I'm not a CS major, so it's different.
All right.
But I definitely would get it. So I definitely would get it. I just need more time.
All right. All right. I don't have anybody's solution this time, so let me go ahead and write it. You need to write a sentinel control loop to get numbers, and 0 is going to be the sentinel. Multiply only the positive numbers entered. All right, so main program begins here, main, and the data, I'll call them num, int, num. Num is where the numbers will be stored. And we need a product, prod. Since we are multiplying everything up, the prod should start at 1. If you start at 0, then 0 times everything is 0, so you have to start at 1. And I need a counter. I don't really need a counter, so I don't have to count because this problem doesn't require any counting. And we need to multiply the positive numbers entered by the user. All right, so that's all I see as what we need. So I'm going to ask for the first data before the loop, enter number, and C in num. All right, so get the first data before the loop begins, and then begin your loop while num is not equal to 0. 0 will be the sentinel, and we had to make sure we will not multiply sentinel. while num is not equal to sentinel, I need to process the data I have. I only have one data. I have to process that. What's the processing I need to do here? I need to multiply the number to the prod and put it back in prod if it is positive. So simply, clearly, I need an if statement to process the number. If num is greater than 0, then prod equal to prod times num. Multiply the num to prod and put it back in prod, then the product has the product. I don't need any counter, so I'm done processing this data. So I just have to go to the next data and ask for the next data now. Always ask for the next data at the bottom of the loop. Enter number. Cin num. And with the new number, I close the loop so that with the new number, it'll go up to the top. If that number is not sentinel, then it will check to see if it is positive. If it is positive, it will multiply. If it is not positive, it will not multiply that number. It'll go on to ask for the next number and keep going. Only the positive numbers will be multiplied. Only when the loop ends, the product is done. It has multiplied all the numbers. So now we can write our output. Product equal to prod. And that's all we need to do. Now notice that the variable num is holding only one piece of data at any time. So suppose that I need to hold the previous data also. I need two data at a time. So suppose that I need two pieces of data available at any time. Then what I should do is previous number, introduce another variable called pnum to mean previous number. And before this, before asking for the next data, pnum equal to num. That means I'm saving num, current value of num, in a variable called pnum, so that when I get the new number going into num, the pnum has the previous number. So you need that in the project. So that's why I'm explaining. You need to have two pieces of data in the project because you need to find the difference between them, how the numbers changed from previous to the new. So to do that, you can you save the previous data there, and then after getting new data, one piece of processing you need to do immediately is process that piece of data by finding difference. So the difference between the two numbers is equal to pnum minus num. So that's one of the things I need to calculate. So right now I have found the difference between previous number and the new number. And I still proceed to go to the top of the loop. So close the loop right after this so that you will now go back to the top with the new data. This pnum difference equal to pnum minus num could be done up here, difference equal to pnum minus num. Then you have to make sure pnum has an initial value before the loop begins, because otherwise when you're into the loop first time, the pnum doesn't have a value. And that's why if I do it here, I have value for the pnum and num. So it makes sense to do it here. But if you change the order, there's always, it can be done if you want to change the order, but then you have to make adjustments accordingly. Now this project is, next project is 4.5.1. I will put the link up. Please don't submit somebody else's work, okay? I know several of you are doing it. And you're not learning anything from that, and you think you're cheating and getting away with it, but I can see, I have been able to determine several of the projects last time were duplicates of somebody else's work with the variable names changed and things like that. I can tell, but I didn't confront you with that because only thing that creates it is unpleasant situation, and nothing is going to be pleasant about that. So I didn't want to create that, so I didn't confront you. But I know several of you are giving me programs written by others, and you're not going to be able to do well in the test if you do that. Get help and try to learn how to do it right, and then finish it yourself. If you do that, you can never forget how you wrote that program, and you have learned it. Like I said at the beginning of the class, if you cheat through this course, you have to cheat through the entire computer science program. Can you do that? And can you get away with that? And then what about going into the job market? You have no idea what to do there. You have to learn this properly. And this course is the basic for the entire computer science major. And if you don't learn this material, you cannot handle computer science. You have to switch to major. All right. So again, I emphasize, do not turn in somebody else's work. Please do it yourself. And I'm willing to help. I have office hours. Meet with me if you need help. This project will be due in about 1 week, and I will post the link today. All right, enjoy the rest of the day. I will see you Monday. Have a nice weekend.
Have a good day, Professor.
You too. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Professor,
Yeah.
I have a question for project 4.4.1. It says the problem asks for the 30th and 45th numbers.
Yes.
But in my textbook, it asks for the 60th and 110th numbers.
Okay. It's about 5-6 times I have mentioned in class that you need to make the corrections posted on the blackboard, physically make the corrections in your book, and you didn't do that. That's why. Okay. You didn't make the corrections.
Okay. My apologies, Professor.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Professor. I have to run, but I just want to ask, please check your email for me. I sent you one last night. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Professor Kugan, this is Ivan Kulikov. I apologize to bother you. I had been late today on the 6 minutes.
Yes.
Honestly, that happened because I moved yesterday in my new apartment, and something happened with my router. I had to figure out, I had to reconnect it, and that's why I apologize. Could you please, if it's possible, could you do not punish me for it? Because
you had a problem.
That really was terrible circumstances because of my everything is new around me, even the router, and I don't know why I tried to connect it and no connections, and where I found it, I'm sorry about it.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I understand your situation. No problem.
And one more question: when you gonna post the grades of exam?
Sometime this week. I'm still grading them, but if you are, you're in this class. I have actually graded most of the students in this class, so you should be able to see the grade in your my grade section. Okay. Only thing is, I haven't opened up the test yet. Until I finished grading everybody, I cannot open the test up. You can see the grade in the grade book.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
No problem. Bye now.
Bye.